It's a fantastic film, one that I recommend that's perfect, again, for kids. It's great for adults. It's great for families. It has just a universal appeal because of its mature choices that it makes. I don't feel like it cuts any corners, and it's not afraid to show dark concepts in a beautiful way. Let's go ahead and move on to my review for The Wild Robot. Earlier this year, we saw DreamWorks release Kung Fu Panda 4, a film that I was actually looking forward to. A fool! I was a fool! It was supposed to feature the return of old iconic villains, like Lord Shen and Tai Lung. Villains from the best entries in the franchise, and Poe the Panda was taking on a new role within his world, but due to cost cutting, uninspired direction, and disappointing writing, that film amounted to a lackluster road trip sequel with Awkwafina voicing another obnoxious animated character. It keeps happening. She needs to be stopped. But DreamWorks had another project set for release later this year. And that film, of course, was The Wild Robot, an adaptation of a book of the same name. And as soon as I and just, others saw the trailers for this picture, our excitement, I think, all grew. And it looked like it was being tailor-made to make us all blubber like babies, or at the very least make us a little teary-eyed. Well, I've seen the movie, and not only does it rank head and shoulders next to some of the year's just best animated films like Inside Out 2 and Transformers 1, but it's easily DreamWorks' best film since Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which is a movie, of course, you guys know that I love, and one that we actually did a watch party for not too long ago, and I had an even better sense of renewed appreciation for it. But The Wild Robot is also just one of the best movies of the year. In case you couldn't glean from the trailers, the film follows a robot named Roz, who is stranded in the wilderness after a massive storm, after a typhoon. And, along with interacting with the many species that reside on this untouched and pristine island, she comes across a gosling, which imprints on her as soon as it hatches. And she, along with the other animals, raise it to the best of their abilities. Now, this movie is absolutely beautiful across the board. Just not in terms of its aesthetics, its animation, character designs. That's obvious, even in the film's marketing. And there are countless just gorgeous and thrilling visual moments throughout this movie. You'll walk away impressed by the visuals. There's no question about that. There's just no doubt in my mind. They have a storybook look to them. It's as if it's like a moving painting. Like all the colors just pop. Makes everything pop in gorgeous fashion. But the film just has this beautiful heart when it comes to its storytelling, and how it features all these characters. This is a movie about motherhood, about parenthood, and the ability to choose one's own path despite the rigid constructs of society or a manufacturer in the case of the movie. These things that might be placed upon you in your life. And this is seen through the character of Roz and other characters in the film. And you just have an all-star cast of people in this movie. Lupita Nyong'o as Roz. You have Pedro Pascal as Fink, this mischievous little fox in the movie. Catherine O'Hara having a hell of a goddamn year. She plays the character of Pinktail, which is this mother possum in the movie. Bill Nighy plays this goose, this elder goose named Longneck. Stephanie Hugh is another robot character we come to meet throughout the film. Mark Hamill is a bear named Thorn. Matt Berry is a sassy, sarcastic, British accented beaver. And Ving Rhames is a noble falcon named Thunderbolt. It's, yeah, just wonderful characters, wonderful voice performances, but so much of this movie does rest on the character of Roz and Lupita Nyong'o's incredible voice performances. This is the type of voice performance that, again, I brought this up. I'm not alone bringing this up. There's been so many other people that have brought this up before. But there needs to be some sort of accolade, some sort of award created at these major award shows, certainly with the Oscars and all the other ones, chat, where they got to award these people for their excellent voice acting. There has to be something. The same with, like, motion capture performances. But let's just, focus on voice acting. What she does with this character and other characters that she voices in the movie, other versions of this robot, the Rosm unit. I guess technically her name is Rosm Unit 7134, but she goes by Roz for short. And she's this robot created by this manufacturer, Universal Dynamics, in a world in which the world has kind of fallen apart to a degree, and is somewhat post-apocalyptic. And humans have created kind of like these utopian bubble societies across the planet. And that's why, like, so much of this world seems so pristine, and so much of the wildlife has returned. They've had, less human interactions over time. But the design for Roz, I think, is fantastic. You can make a lot of comparisons to things like, the Iron Giant, or hell, even something like HAL 9000. Like, she has a face, but she doesn't have a mouth. Right? Like, when she speaks, like, nothing's like moving or anything like that. Like, she lights up, like her apparatus lights up. It's all different colors and stuff. But, they're very relying on Lupita Nyong'o's voice. And, like other, voice actors before her, or voice robots, despite maybe limitations placed on them when it comes to the character's design, she just gives this wonderful and beautiful, very maternal performance throughout the movie. Great comedic timing throughout. Also helps that the character's just so well written. The dialogue is just so sharp and quick and very, very funny. But she's able to balance the humorous dialogue with the ones that were, it's going to gut punch you, where it's going to make you watery. It certainly made me watery-eyed. And she was the highlight of the movie for me. And just a wonderful showcase of a powerful and loving maternal figure in film. She's up there with those other badass mom characters, chat. She's head and shoulders next to, Sarah Connor in Terminator Judgment Day, and, Ellen Ripley in Aliens, protecting their own. And that's what's so great about this movie. Like, it focuses on this robot who is just typically tasked to be kind of like a slave. And when you think about it in hindsight, just a slave labor. It grows from that to being a mother to this little goose, this little gosling. How that actually transpires is kind of quite dark, and it surprised me in a great way. But the relationship that she forms with this little gosling, this runt of the litter, is adorable. And, we watch this little gosling just, grow up and, gets his own name, Bright Bill, and he's struggling to acclimate to this, again, very kind of cruel and dark and cold world. As much as beautiful as this movie is, it gets pretty goddamn dark. But it's the relationship between the two of them, and also the relationship of others, that really grounds it and just makes your heart swell. Just two wonderful characters. But you have a massive cast of people. Pedro Pascal, of course, yes, Pedro Pascal, who has, some would say we've been saturated with Pedro Pascal. He's in too many things. He is in a lot of things. But here, I think he does a very good job. At first, you don't even recognize his voice. I think for a lot of these people, listening to Roz, I didn't even realize that was Lupita Nyong'o playing that character. I think that's a good sign. I think sometimes what bothers me about certain, like, animation houses, and it may not even be their decision, but they tend to hire, like, these live action actors or these celebrity voice actors, and a lot of these people are just, they're just doing their own voice, and they're not, like, putting any oomph into it. They're not doing anything that makes their performance all that special. Almost feels like they're kind of like going through the motions, if you will. I don't feel like anyone's going through the motions here. I think they're all doing a fantastic job. And Pedro Pascal is this fox named Think is great. And much like a fox, he's a bit of an asshole. He's mischievous, underhanded to a degree. But throughout the movie, he forms a very special bond with Roz, and they become very good friends, and this weird little family unit. It's kind of like the three of them most of the time throughout the film: a robot and a fox and a baby gosling, and the hijinks ensue. But it really, really works, and much like with all the other animals, they add those little animalistic sensibilities to them, and so they intermix that with the voice acting. They intermix the sounds that like an actual fox would make or a goose would make along with the voice acting. I think it's really clever. And also how Roz comes to like actually understand all of their languages is also pretty cool. Just visually, just seeing that and learn to understand them over time. Catherine O'Hara, who's having a really goddamn good year, if you ask me. Of course, she's coming hot off of Beetlejuice. I think she was one of the best things in that film, one of the best characters. They actually gave her some fun stuff to do. Here she plays a mother possum named Pinktail, and she's kind of the one that introduces the concept of parenthood and motherhood to Roz the robot, and she's very blunt in the way she's a mother, but she's a mother nonetheless, and her maternal instincts are on full display. There's also some dark humor. Obviously, that's layered throughout the entire movie, but you see actually a lot with her character and her little, I guess, her kit. I don't know what you call a group of possum, Chad. A pack of possums, a pride of possums, a kid of possums. I don't know, but they do some fun stuff with her kids. Oh, and what's so cool is throughout the movie, because we see like baby animals and kid animals and stuff, and they actually get kid voice actors and kids to voice them, and they're just so goddamn cute. They're adorable. Bill Nighy, who is always great. Listen, whether or not every film he's in is good or bad, he's typically giving an amazing performance. He's giving a great performance, and he plays this kind of older goose who is observing the relationship between Roz and Bright Bill and Think in the movie, and he's kind of like a character that Bright Bill looks up to in the film. He's wonderful. He's some of the kindness that I think is necessary for this film, because so many of the animals in this movie kind of fucking hate what Roz is, because they think she's like a monster, and they don't like Bright Bill because he's a runt of the litter and things. But he sees the good in them. He sees what makes them so special. Stephanie Hugh, I mentioned, she's in the movie. A brief role, comes in more of the third act. She plays another robot named Vantra. I don't want to say too much about her, but I think she does a pretty goddamn good job. And Mark Hamill, who has had a long career as a voice actor, 30 plus years now. I didn't even recognize him at first. He plays the brown bear Thorn, and he's very good. And he actually was really excited to be in this project because he had read the book years prior, and he wanted to be involved in somehow. And so Mark Hamill's doing a great job. Matt Berry as Paddler, such a great name for a beaver. He's great. He is sassy, sarcastic, vain, kind of insane to a degree. He has like this special project in the movie which he just wants to gnaw on the biggest tree in the forest. He wants to knock this massive, just this Leviathan-sized tree down. And, Matt Berry, he just has that voice. I mean, you whether it be in any Fallout, whether it be in What We Do in the Shadows, like anytime he comes on and you just give him some dialogue, like, how are you going to make that sound funny or sound cool? And Matt Berry's like, don't worry, I got it. And he nails it. He absolutely nails it. Like, I want to hear I think we just want to hear Matt Berry's voice and everything in general because he's just so fucking charismatic. And here he's great. Every time he shows up as Paddler, the British beaver, he's hilarious. And Ving Rhames, like I didn't even know Ving Rhames was in this movie. Perfectly cast as this falcon who helps Bright Bill learn to fly and to be a bird. I thought I was like, oh, he's gonna be like a villainous character. Not at all. He was fantastic. He's a great father figure, I think, to someone like Bright Bill. And they have, just in the character in general, in the flying sequences, beautiful how they handle the animation with that. again, the fact that so much of the film actually looks like a storybook, looks like a painting, and how they do it, those amazing flight sequences, which DreamWorks has experience with. This is from the same filmmaker who did How to Train Your Dragon, Chris Sanders, I believe, and all the flight sequences with this, whether it be with falcons or geese, absolutely gorgeous across the board. Yeah, and it just everyone's performance is really great. Like, there's not a weak voice performance in this. I brought this up before, but the film has a dark sense of humor that is surprisingly mature, and I think the movie does a great job of handling mature concepts like death and one's purpose and behavior very well. It's how they present these things are great, not only for children but also for adults. But they kind of make death. I shouldn't say they make death a joke, but death is a part of the humor of this movie. Like, we're in the wilderness, we're on this pristine island that just hasn't encountered humans, at least in quite some time, or at least for many generations, and it's just nature, species fighting one another, eating each other, trying to survive, and that always comes up, and they always, like, in big, powerful moments. And if any of these animals can overcome their nature to better themselves, and that's kind of like what Roz's stories is. She has her nature, she has her manufactured programming. Can she overcome that to be what Bright Bill, what her son needs her to be, right? And I think it's a wonderful, positive message throughout this film. It's just simply it's what makes The Wild Robot one of the best movies of the year, and not just one of the best animated films. It accomplishes that with ease, of course. It's right next to, as I said before, it's head and shoulders right next to Inside Out 2 and Transformers 1, which are both wonderful animated movies, which I encourage people to check out. But yeah, it achieves that, and also achieves just being a fantastic film. It's a great movie, and it really shows you, it proves, like, because you watch something like Kung Fu Panda 4, it's like, oh my God, which kind of represents the worst of DreamWorks. But something like this shows them as like, oh no, they can deliver something that features spectacle, that features warmth and great themes and storytelling and characters you're gonna fall in love with. And when things may or may not work out for some characters, maybe they may or may not die, you feel something. It tugs at your heartstrings and it makes you emotional. And it's a fantastic film, one that I recommend. That's perfect, again, for kids. It's great for adults. It's great for families. It has just a universal appeal because of its mature choices that it makes. I don't feel like it cuts any corners, and it's not afraid to show dark concepts in a beautiful way. But yeah, I could not recommend The Wild Robot more. I think it's one of the best movies of the year, one of the best movies of 2024, and I could see it being one of the best animated films of the decade. But what about you guys? I'm actually very curious. How many of you have actually seen The Wild Robot? Did you love it as much as I did? Were you more mixed on it? Did you not like it? Maybe you were busy seeing Megapolis. No, you weren't. No. That movie bombed. I'll tell you what. I'll say this will be the last thing I say before I go ahead and read some of your guys' comments. I saw Megalopolis the Friday before I saw The Wild Robot. And as you guys know, I was not a fan of Megalopolis like many people. To me, that movie was just horribly directed, written, acted. It's ugly. The CGI is grotesque in the worst way possible. The special effects are grotesque in the worst way possible. It's anti-cinema. It's boring. It's a slog. It's like by the time you get to the third act, you just want the whole thing to end, just be over. All these characters just to fucking die, so you don't have to look at them anymore. And it leaves you with such a feeling is very rare for me. I've only had this happen a couple of times in my life when it comes to seeing like bad movies. Because they're like, you see a bad movie, like, movie sucked, movie was bad, or, thankfully the best case scenario with a bad movie, it's like, it's so bad that it's unintentionally funny, which Megalopolis certainly has those moments. It definitely has those, which is like that at its best. It's when it's unintentionally funny. But man, there's nothing worse than just leaving a movie and not wanting to watch movies. Because that's the feeling that Megalopolis left with me. Is like, I just don't want to watch anything right now. I don't want to watch as much as, and you guys know I love movies. It's a fantastic medium. I think it's great to talk about and things. But this movie made me go like, no, I don't really want to watch anything. I rather go for a walk. I rather read a book. I rather play a video game. I rather do anything but watch a movie. But thankfully, later that evening, we watched some great animated films, funny enough, The Iron Giant and Mitchell vs. the Machines, which were, of course, were in honor of The Wild Robot. I was like, oh, no, movies are great. But if you happen to have watched Megalopolis before watching The Wild Robot, then do yourself a favor and watch The Wild Robot right afterwards, because it will make you realize, like, oh, it's okay, don't worry. There's still amazing things being made. That can leave you with so many different feelings, whether it be joy or sadness. But this movie just makes you leave feeling just warm and just good about yourself, about film. And I think that is perhaps one of its greatest strengths, is that it makes you feel good at the end. So yeah, I highly recommend the Wild Robot, especially if you watched Megalopolis. But what about you guys? What about you guys? Did anyone see Wild Robot this week? I'm actually very curious. I know some of you have.
5 minutes later.
Let's see. Confidence Crystal Fool can confirm 100%. A fool through and through. She came out unscathed after Argo. I think the thing is, the cast in Argo was so goddamn big, you forget who was actually in it. A group of possums is called a passel? Is that what it's called? I got them all wrong. I said a pack, a parade, a pride, a kit, a passel. Fair enough. Pedro, I'm in everything nowadays, Pascal. True, he really is. It's almost kind of like, and I think Pedro Pascal's a great actor. He's a great actor, but it's just like, all right, he does a little too much. But here, again, his performance, occasionally it's like, oh yeah, it is Pedro Pascal, but he's playing like such a character where you're like, wait, who is this? Which is what you should do as a goddamn voice actor. Same thing for Lupita Nyong'o as Roz. I was like, I know it's Lupita Nyong'o, but I'm not hearing her, which is great. Let's see. Crusaders, the better of the two movies I saw yesterday, and ends with a message about the importance of society coming together to make a better future. Hell yeah. Bad Boy Chris Aaron is one of those underrated directors in animation. He created Lilo and Stitch. That's true. Also the voice of Stitch. How to Train Your Dragon. The Crew. It's really his own. A stinker was Call the Wild. Oh, he did that. Is that the one with the CGI dog and Harrison Ford? Great book, by the way, Call the Wild. But that movie is like, what the fuck were they thinking? Just make it animated. I think a Call the Wild animated movie would have been fucking great. Just do that. I don't know. Oh man. Questions for another day. And conversation for another day. He balances the comedy and the drama really well. He does. He does. It's great. And they feed into one another. Shrek 5, let's see what you got. Yeah, because that's like DreamWorks' next big movie, right? That's a good question, Campaigning 9. Yeah, that's the thing with like all these animation houses. They're releasing 2 movies within 1 year. It's like, okay, one of these is going to fucking suck. Is there been a case where like both movies were like really fucking good? I'm sure there has been. I'm sure, of course, there's been exceptions. But I'm just thinking in recent memory. Because I think back like when Pixar was going to release, because they released Turning Red, and was it Lightyear the same year, right? Is that what it was? And like Lightyear was, I was excited for that movie. That movie sucked. Let's see here. DreamWorks. What do you got, DreamWorks? What do you got? We got upcoming projects. Scroll. That's very critical. Accolades. Now what I want upcoming releases. Wikipedia, you're failing me. All right, let me do DreamWorks movies, upcoming movies. Let's see. Upcoming DreamWorks animation projects. Here we go. All right. Well, Wild Robot, which we just had. Dogman. Oh yeah, Dogman. By the way, that concept like makes me nervous. I get anxiety watching that show. They show the trailer again for the Wild Robot. And I liked the trailer. I did. I was like, okay. But just like they killed that guy. They sewed his dog's head on his body. It's like, is it a new person or is it the dog? I don't know. It's like RoboCop. It's RoboCop for kids. Oh, Bad Guys 2 is coming out. Okay. So we have the robot. We got Dogman, which is they have a lot of movies. They have Dogman, The Bad Guys, which I like The Bad Guys. Bad Guys is fun. Then they got Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. That might be one of their direct-to-VOD ones. and then Shrek 5 is 2026. All right. I thought it was next year. So I guess the big DreamWorks movies of next year are Dogman, The Bad Guys 2. And something called Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. And then Shrek 5 is July 1st, 2026. So I hope, I'll tell you what, to your point, Kingpin 89, I'm hoping that Shrek 5 is at the very least of the same quality. Well, Wild World would be great. But is of the same quality as something like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which was wonderful. You know, I don't want a fucking Kung Fu Panda 4 with Shrek 5. All right? So we'll see. I know, Franny Coppola, how the buddy of phone, indeed. I was cabaret there, I'm like, but not in the ways they wanted. Oh, sure. I can see that. So tell me my insane taste mean I'm going to have a double the joy? Hi, Edgy, good to see you. I think so. I think you're gonna love the Wild Robot. I can't wait to talk to you on Wednesday about Megalopolis. We're gonna have a very robust conversation. How many do you think this movie could be in the conversation for Best Picture of the Oscars next year? Sure. I mean, I think a lot of the animated films this year. I think like Inside Out 2 could possibly get a nomination. This could get a nomination. I have to look back at like what has come out this year. I know I did my best movies of the year so far in July. We got to the halfway point, but I think there's a really good chance for Inside Out 2 and Wild Robot to be nominated. But again, you know, we still have we're exiting summer movie season, and now we're entering like award season and additional genre like horror stuff, obviously for October. So, you know, we'll see. I imagine something big's gonna probably surprise us and take us aback. I would hope so. But yeah, could this be nominated for Best Picture? Could Inside Out 2 be? Like Transformers 1 won't be, but it's still a great movie. I think it deserves a nomination for Best Animated Film. I don't think it would win. I would still say The Wild Robot and Inside Out 2 are better animated films than Transformers 1, but that's not to say Transformers 1 isn't great. But in regards to this and Inside Out 2 being nominated for Best Picture, sure. Yeah, it could do it. I wouldn't bat an eye.